Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting. And just as a reminder, I've had it asked me a couple times, make sure we speak into our speakers because some of us get like this sometimes or don't turn them on. So watch your mics if you can. Okay. I don't believe we had anyone for the open forum. Celebrating district successes. We've got, it looks like Sarah. Sarah? Who is, yes, come on up. Yeah, oh yeah, Christy, I didn't see you there. Christy, it's your,
She exemplifies calm patience in the classroom, creating a nurturing environment where students feel safe and valued. Her unwavering support for each child is evident as she goes above and beyond to ensure that every student reaches their potential. Sarah implements innovative methods to make learning enjoyable and engaging, igniting a love for education in her students. Additionally, she is a fantastic teammate and collaborator, always willing to share ideas and support her colleagues. Sarah's dedication and creativity truly make her an invaluable asset to our school.
Thank you.
okay, before we approve tonight's agenda, we just got one small addition under 6.95. We need to add the French Club also. So 6.95 will add French Club. And with that addition, I will look for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We got a motions made by Mary Jo. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose the same sign. All right, thank you. All right, and consent items. Take a look, you've had a chance to look at those. I'll look for the same motion to approve our consent items.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. All right, thank you. All right, now 7.0, we'll start with our reports. Dave Krenz isn't here tonight as our interim, so let's start with our school board reports and Kim.
Yeah, thank you very much. No meetings, but I did have the opportunity to attend the girls' hockey final. Wow, they skate fast, holy cow. And I think someone in the crowd said that it's too bad that Dodge County and Albert Lee are in the same section because they both would have would have done really well at state. So that was good, and it was fun to see our student section and the crowd. And then I had the fortune to be the judge advisor for the robotics competition this last Saturday, long day. I think I lost my voice from that, but what a great experience. I think there were 36 teams, junior high and high school, and just I'm starting to learn a little bit about coding and components and PLCs and things like that. And what these students know is just amazing, and how they carry themselves. And what I had the opportunity to do was the judges would interview the teams, and then they would look at their engineering notebooks, and then they would do judges awards for that, and I'd help lead that. So I had to take a test to do that, so it's good I passed that test. But just really excited for our robotics teams. One of our junior high teams, and I'm not going to remember which one, there were 4, they actually were picked to be in alliance with a high school team for the finals, which is super cool, right? Or the quarterfinals, and they actually won a trip to state after their competition. So I think we have 3 teams from that, and I could be wrong, but I know we at least have 3 teams from Albert Lea going to the state tournament, and I think that celebration's coming up. So really excited to be doing that, and if you can say after 8 hours on a Saturday, being excited about being part of something, then it was a good time. So thanks for that opportunity.
Just 2 items. I too was involved in an organization that earned a trip to the state tournament. The wrestlers won at Northfield last Saturday, and this is the second consecutive year that we've done that. And I know these boys pretty well, and girls, and they're an outstanding group. And I know that the program has done a lot to develop them as individuals, not just wrestlers, just athletes, but as good people. The other thing I've been involved in is the Education Foundation, of course. It is my happiness to sign thousands of dollars worth of checks that go to scholarships for students. Gary also signs those checks. He's the chair, I'm the secretary treasurer. So that's always good. That's it.
Thank you. Attended lots of sporting events. What a great winter season. Both athletics and arts. Congrats, Max, on All-State as well, and robotics. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on, which is great. I attended the Teacher of the Year committee, and tomorrow is the Teacher of the Year tea at 3:45 in the Commons. The teachers asked that it be moved back to the Commons this year, come back on site. So it will be again at 3:45. So come and support our teachers. And MSBA offered a 6-hour session a couple weeks ago on negotiations, and is very, very good. They just went through some of the new changes with the legislature, kind of the biggest challenges for budgeting coming up with Paul, which Paul has mentioned some of those coming up. One of the things I wasn't aware of is that the TRA employer share that we pay as a district increased 0.75%. And so they said, make sure that's in your budget because that's a significant increase. So currently now our TRA portion is 9.5%. And just, they said it's a reminder, which obviously Paul knows this, but make sure the public knows too, that when we say we get a 2% increase from the legislature, it's not on our entire budget. It's just on the 60% or our general fund budget. So a lot of good reminders in there. And then they said the other challenge that is coming up, and they are lobbying to help make some corrections, is the ESST, the Earned Sick and Safe Time, and we heard a lot about that at our MSBA conference as well. So they just acknowledged some of the concerns they're seeing and hearing from districts and the work to try and get those changed. And then the last session is that I attended last week and will attend tomorrow. It's a 2-part session, is the MSBA officers legal training. Angie's attending that as well, so I'll let her say more on that. But basically the highlights are voting, the laws affecting school board members, hearings, data privacy, and one that was good for me is degrees of relationship of staff to board members, being I have son and daughter-in-law in the district employed. And the last thing they said, which was new to me and probably not to a lot of people, but I didn't realize that if we put a teacher on ULA, all board members need to be here for that vote. So if somebody's absent, we can't take it. And I did not know that, so those are my updates.
Good, thank you.
Well, the 2 things I had written down, Mary Jo just covered. So I attended the Teacher of the Year committee, which I had just joined, so I'm kind of learning how that works. And Bruce Olson was there, so it was fun to see him. We put together letters that were going to the nominees, and then we just talked about the Teacher of the Year tea, which will be tomorrow. I'm glad you said what time it was. I was trying to remember what time it was, 3:45. So I'll be going to that. And then also I am doing the MSBA officer training. The first session for me was last Thursday, and the next one will be this Thursday. And so far it's just been a good refresher for how things should work. I haven't learned too much new, although the point you mentioned about everyone having to be there for the ULA, that did stand out too. So, but that's what I have.
Okay, took in some hockey. Boy, I always feel like girls' hockey is more of a finesse sport as far as on ice, but man, they can check like a son of a gun. And it was incredible. And on a personal note, Power 96 invited me to come up and speak, and be interviewed. And I did it because, first of all, my son-in-law is a sports director, but they do this box cast where if you have a smart TV, you can watch live sports on the TV. And so I do a little quality control. But I just spoke for myself as a board member, but I did thank the station for covering Tiger sports. They do a nice job. They try to be as present as they can, and I did express my appreciation for that as well. I took in the robotics fundraiser, and I was able to attend part of the event. Very well run. That robotics competition was ran like a well-wound watch. It just did a nice job. Albert Lee, one of the teams in Albert Lee, played my hometown of East Grand Forks, and unfortunately East Grand Forks beat them, but then lost in the semifinals. But our kids performed very well. I got to backtrack on the hockey. The pep band was playing, which I think is nice to get the pep band out there. I knew some of the pep band students. They were playing 1970s music in pep band. I said, hey, Smoke on the Water, 1972. It was awesome. Been taking in the legislative updates by MSBA, a couple other personal notes, but connected to the school district. Our Lions Club gave $1,000 to the Food for Backpack program, and I hauled some food over to Hawthorne about a week or so ago. And as Neil mentioned, I'm chairing for the next 2 years the Education Foundation.
Just a couple additions. The only thing that was different in the girls' hockey that I didn't see was different from the USA versus Canada hockey the other night. I was actually glad of that. I wasn't quite sure what happened on Saturday night, but I'm sure glad it didn't happen in Otana with our gals. No, they played very well, and each time it's interesting to see every one of the events that we went to see how much better they are getting by the end of the year, which is, Neil said, is a tribute to not just becoming better athletes, but understanding more what they're doing out there and becoming better people, and I think then better teammates and everything else. And one other thing, I had the privilege of calling bingo at Lakeview. Gosh, that was an experience. I know it was a great turnout, Casey, and it was fun to see the kids. It's back in the day with my children when they went to Lakeview, it was fun night, and every room had trinkets. And that was kind of nice here that they could just go up to a table and pick out a few things, maybe even a little bit bigger. But I did miss the cakewalk because every year we came home with a cake, and that probably wasn't good for me, but I enjoyed it. So anyway, that's my report. Go ahead.
Hello, I am Nicole Brooks. I work at Lakeview as the dean. February is I Love to Read Month in all the elementary buildings. They celebrate by having guest readers from the community, dress-up days, mystery readers. Southwest students even get to partake. Some of them went over and read to Sibley, which is a great opportunity for them to step into a leadership position. At Southwest, they just had a snow week. At the high school, they're gearing up for Winterfest activities and dress-up days. The Student Council and National Honor Society led a book drive for Africa. They collected over 2,000 books. The ALC held a very successful family engagement night where they had food and activities. The 18 to 21 transition students hosted a lunch for Brookside staff on February 12th. They served homemade soup, desserts, and bread. And lastly, the ALC staff took on the Academy Day, went to other alternative schools and learned from them.
Thank you. All right, Max, we'll give you a first shot at it tonight for the students.
Okay. So one thing that we did at the high school over this past week was the plant science class, which I feel like it might be new this year. I'm not for sure, but I haven't heard of it before. But they sold carnations to raise money for their class, and they sold over 1,000, which is really cool that many people got involved in that. And it was a really good way to like have fun with Valentine's. This past weekend, as some of you may have seen, I participated in the MMEA All-State Ensemble, as well as Ruby Mikinen. We're both seniors from the high school. And that was an amazing experience. It was super cool. And I also had the honor to participate in the Minnesota Future Music Educators thing at the conference. So I got to learn about what it's like to be a music educator, because that's hopefully what I want to be in the future. So I got to attend a lot of sessions on that, and it was really interesting to hear about the teaching perspective of it. We also had a 9th grade student, Greta Huston, participate in the middle level all-state orchestra. So that's another student who hopefully will be in the full level all-state orchestra when she's old enough, because that's a great thing that she's already participating in that. We also had our first student cabinet with Superintendent Krenz this past week on the 12th, I believe. And that was really good to hear about what his role will be as we transition between superintendents. Just a few upcoming things at the high school. We have the Wall of Inspiration ceremony on March 7th, which that's always a good thing to honor those inspirational people in our community. And before the next board meeting, the choir will be taking our Nashville trip this year, which I'm excited to be going on. So hopefully I can see a lot of cool things there, because I've never been before.
Carly?
All right. So Winterfest is happening this week. Today was supposed to be Twin Day, and I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see that. That would have been really fun. We did do Books for Africa, NHS did. That was a really great experience to be a part of. I really enjoyed it. That is our service project for the year. And then on March 5th, NHS will have its next blood drive. So that is very exciting. We had a really great turnout last time around Christmas. And then for my last thing, it's for Alahasa, one of our writers, KB, won the Best of Snow Award for her feature on Haley Deming, which is really exciting. We're really working on building up our publications department, and I feel like that's just a really great benchmark for like where we're going and what we're gonna do in the future.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then, nothing under safe and healthy schools. So under curriculum and instruction, we've got 9.1, some high reliability school presentation. Kim Larson, Tyler Johnson, Sean Gaston, Chris Dibble. Come on now, everyone. Sean, go ahead.
I've been voluntold to go first here, so. All right, well, thank you for having us talk to you guys about our HRS Summit experience. And so, Darcy, are you the next person when I ready to move on, or? Oh, right in front of me. Yep.
There's a button on the side to turn on.
I know, that's what you guys get for sending me up first. Thank you. Before we begin, I just want to, once again, thank the board for allowing us the opportunity to go to the summit. It's a great experience. This was my first time going to this. And so I was able to learn quite a bit. And like I was telling people that I've already spoke to, just things became a lot clearer in my mind as far as next steps at Southwest Middle School as well. So why high reliability schools, or what exactly is that? So this is all revolves around Bob Marzano. He's an educational guru, has spent many years doing the research, so that way people like myself and the other principals and educators can just use that research to benefit ourselves and our community as well. And so where this all came from is that Bob looked at what are called high reliability organizations. And these are organizations that perform safely and effectively under high-risk environments. So things like the FAA, our Navy, aircraft carriers, things like that as well. And he applied that to a school concept. And so what HROs, high reliability organizations, or HRS, high reliability schools, all have in common are systems to consistently achieve their goals. Culture, so again, making sure that the mindset is not keeping the old way, but what is the best way moving forward. Planning and training. So with that, I just want to say thank you again to the board for the academy days that we have built into the schedule this year and for next year, because the time that our teachers have to plan is very valuable, and that 8 hours of what I like to call uninterrupted time is very nice for them to get a lot of that work done as well. All right, so essentially what HRS is, or high reliability schools, is there's 5 different levels, and you always start at level 1. And in order to move up to a level, you have to show that your school is maintaining the previous level then as well. And so as a district, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, no, actually 4 years ago, we all were HRS level 1 certified. And I'll kind of briefly touch on that here in a moment. And then most of the schools right now are working on level 2. I say most because high school was just recently level 2 certified before winter break. And so what you're going to see here is that what Marzano's team has found is that to have a high reliability school, there are things called leading indicators. These are important conditions that are known to be associated with improvement. So again, research proven things that, again, if schools are doing these, they are going to have results then as well at each level as you're going up. And so there's a total of 25 across the 5 levels. And then what makes it unique is that each school then provides what are called lagging indicators. And what lagging indicators are basically the pieces of evidence that that particular school uses to show that they are reaching that leading indicator. So if we take a look at HRS level 1, there are 8 leading indicators. So whether you're at Southwest Middle School or Staples Motley or whatever school district you are at, if you are in the HRS process, you have these same 8 leading indicators. And again, I'll just show you a snippet of what we use at Southwest. Since we are going through the level 2 certification, we have to show that we are still maintaining level 1 status. And so this is a slide that shows that the 1.2 leading indicator, students, parents, and the community perceive the school environment as safe and orderly. And so each one of those links has a separate page or document that you can go to that shows, for example, the floor plan of the school, duty coverage, so forth and so on. Over to the bottom right there, there's quick data. So these are surveys that we give to our students and parents each year throughout the year that asks, hey, how are we doing in this leading indicator as well? And so there's all sorts of information from that as well of the lagging indicators that we do at our schools. So each school does this. It might just be put together a little bit differently, but the idea of lagging indicators and leading indicators is the same. And again, here's just another example. This is 1.7 leading indicator. The success of the whole school as well as individuals within the school is appropriately acknowledged. So here are some things that we do at Southwest. You can see there's an areas for improvement. And so our BLT, our building leadership team, goes through this each year to make sure that things are updated, that we're still doing this. And that's a big thing that we learned at the summit as well, is that our HRS is a measurement system. And so you want to keep things that are working. And then also, if you're doing things that maybe do not have the intended effects that it is having, then you get rid of it. Again, being high reliability. So then for level 2, again, any school that's going through this process, these are the 6 leading indicators that you need to show that you are doing in order to be certified at level 2. One of the things that our district has done a really good job at and worked really hard at is our instructional model. And so we essentially have borrowed/stole this from Marzano, with their permission, of course. And so what these are essentially 43 elements, again, research proven strategies that teachers can do in their classroom that have been proven to be effective. Now, in any given lesson, you're not gonna see all 43 elements going on at once. However, it is there so that way teachers can be more intentional about the strategies that they are doing. This is our interactive one that we use at Southwest. And so again, each one of these elements you'd be able to click on. And unfortunately, we won't be able to do it in the presentation here, but if we were to click on element 22, organizing students to interact, it's gonna bring you, the staff to a page where it has information on exactly, oh, look at that. So it brings us to this page, and for each element, it gives the student engagement survey, so that is the purple document that you see under files. And then there are what's called the compendium, basically what each one of those elements actually is. And then if you click on the library, Darcy, so underneath the folder, sorry, there you go. And this is definitely a work in progress, but this is the work that our team has been doing. Is essentially there's articles. So when we find articles online, we can put them into each folder. There is also pictures, artifacts. So again, if you click on that first one, this is just a quick picture of 2 students working together on a science lab. Information from what we call the NASIT, or New Art and Science of Teaching book, that really dives into each of these elements as well. And then it just gives you a brief example. And then one more in the library there, Darcy, the videos. So here's where it's a work in progress as well. But we try to, when I say we, our instructional coach, Wendy Greenfield, and myself, we'll try to record videos of things going on in the classroom to then later use in our library. This is very effective in the fact that, especially for our new teachers, we can refer back to this library and say, hey, why don't you go look at the video or videos of element 22 to see some ways that our staff have done for organizing students to interact. And so it's a very helpful tool in that sense. And again, the big part of level 2 is having highly effective teachers in the classroom as well. So you can go back to the original presentation now, Darcy. So for the last 5-ish years, all the schools in the district have been working really hard at level 2 as well. And so the gap between level 1 and level 2, there usually is a little bit more time, just because it does take a little bit more time of getting these things in place. But as you will see when moving from level 2 to level 3, which level 3 is having a guaranteed and viable curriculum, there's not as much time because level 2 and level 3 kind of go hand in hand with one another as well. So each one of us have kind of a slide here just on our takeaways from the summit. One thing that really stood out to me is this Rick Wormley video. And Rick Wormley, again, is an education guru, really made his way in the middle level. So I believe he was a middle school English teacher, but he was recognized as National School Teacher of the Year in the mid-90s. But Darcy, if we have a moment, if you could just play this as just a quick minute video here.
As people are coming to know, I'm demand of them this automatic, you learn at the same pace as everyone else. That's the factory model of schooling that we realize doesn't work. In fact, to really explore differentiated instruction, it's almost countercultural. It's almost subversive, because schools weren't meant to meet the needs of kids who don't get it first or right away. The whole system kind of conspires against that. So we're going to have to do things a little differently from time to time, because people learn in different ways and in different timelines. That's fine. We can do that. But one of the things that's operating kind of against teachers is this idea that we have to get through the curriculum by the end of the year. Well, it turns out if you do the math, kindergarten through 12th grade, it takes to about grade 22 to really teach everything and do justice to all of it. We tend to stop at schools, most schools, at grade 12. We're 10 years shy. So a lot of teachers go through their year like this. Here's a bunch of stuff, take a test. Here's a bunch of stuff, take a test. Here's a bunch of stuff, take a test. You didn't get it when I taught it? Well, that just stinks for you. Join us when you can. And we keep moving through the year. This is no way to teach humans, but it is something we have as a system. And until somebody brighter than us comes up with a better idea, we're going to have to do some things to mitigate those negative aspects.
All right. And again, so the idea there is when you're looking at state standards for any grade or subject, they tend to be very heavy. And again, not to say that not any standard is not important, but just to be able to get through each standard from every grade level to the next, and to have students proficient at that, as you can see, would take quite some time. Now, one thing that we're starting to notice is that when new standards are coming out, they're not as heavy in the number of them. And so I was a science teacher before getting into the admin world, and so I remember when we were going through standards, you had roughly 40 to 50 standards that you are required to get. And if you think about, all right, well, we have 170 student contact days, and then you really start breaking that down, well, that just means that you really have 3 days, and barring any like beginning of the year, end of the year, homecoming, any kind of festivities, if you just have 170 school days, really you only have 3 to 4 days to get through each standard. So it becomes very difficult. And so the big things that I took away from the summit are some of the work that we've already been doing, but again, just kind of going with the next steps. And so some of the work that we are already doing are what we call priority standards, or what Marzano calls critical concepts. And so you go through your state standards and figure out which ones, 10 to 15, are the most priority for students to know now and as they move on to next grades as well. And that gives teachers then more time, and students more time to learn those critical priority standards then as well. Once those priority standards are established, teachers create what are called proficiency scales. So you can think of this as the how will you know if students get it? And there goes from a 1 to a 4 scale with those proficiency scales. And then once proficiency scales are established, those teachers then create assessments to check to see where students are at with those priority standards. And then working on what we call curriculum maps. So you can think of this as a one-page document. If you want to say, hey, what's going on in 7th grade ELA, we would hand you a curriculum map, and you can see the priority standards that 7th grade English students have. And then on the back side is basically a quick year-long, here's what they do weeks 1 through 2. Priority standard 2 is addressed during weeks 3 through 6, so forth and so on. So basically just like a one-page document where you can kind of see what's going on. And then from there, teachers then are doing what are called instructional cycle or unit planning, and then their CT work as well. And one of the biggest things, and my colleagues will kind of touch on this as well, is really meeting the needs of each individual student. Once you get to level 3 status, as Chris will talk about, level 4 and 5 can be a pretty big jump for school districts. In fact, Marzano's team has made that very clear, that if your district decides that you stop at level 3, that is perfectly okay as well. But after level 3, you are really meeting the needs of each individual students versus the averages of students then as well. And so, again, that was just kind of my takeaway from our HRS Summit when we were in San Antonio at the end of January. Any questions for me right now?
So then Tyler, each of you'll just cover your own kind of takeaways in a different part of it? Okay.
Yes. Yep. Each one of us will just have one slide here to kind of go over.
Anything for Tyler specific?
What does the certification process look like? Does someone come in from the outside and
Yeah, so pre-COVID, there was somebody that was coming in. I was not a part of the level 1 certification. I was a dean at the high school at that time. But there was a representative from Marzano that would come in and ask questions and go through that process. Now it's done through what's called a Moodle, so an online platform where you upload pieces of evidence, videos as well from myself and our staff, students, showing that you are in fact doing the work of, in our case, level 2 HRS.
Was level one very specific to each building? It seems like maybe it builds on each building, becomes more specific as you go through each different level. Is that true, or is?
So it's kind of each school is unique. And so that was another kind of cool takeaway from the summit as well, is that there were some schools, in fact, we had a roundtable with Bob Marzano, discussion with probably 20 other people in the room, but there was a middle school principal in Michigan who was there, and he and his school were at level 5 in the HRS, but no other school in the district was HRS, and so that was pretty unique. And so, I'm sorry, what was your original question there, Dave?
Did the district kind of start out on a
Oh, yes.
base for all buildings and then you built?
Yeah, and so no, each school still has those 9 leading indicators. It's those lagging indicators of what does your school do to reach those leading indicators. So each school has their own unique, sometimes same lagging indicators, but sometimes different lagging indicators that show that you are, in fact, achieving those leading indicators.
Tyler, do they give you, excuse me, do they give you?
It's not on.
It was.
It was? It's not green.
You can sit back here. That's okay. Okay, now I forgot my question. Oh, no, so is there like, do they share with you like kind of the sweet spot of going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, like how many years or how much time that takes, or is it really just unique to each school?
It is unique to each school, and I know that's kind of a blanket statement, but there were some schools that, because they do a recognition ceremony as well, and so our high school colleagues were recognized during this time as well. But there were some schools that did level 1, 2, 3, 4 all in 1 year. There were some school districts that hit multiple levels in 1 year. So it is possible. The minimum is 5 years. After 5 years, then you have to go back to that previous level to show that, hey, all right, you are still doing this. Okay, and you can still work then on level 2. So I guess the minimum is 5 years, but however long it takes the school to reach that level, really. All right, thank you, guys.
Kim?
Tyler did such a great job. It was so fabulous to be at San Antonio, learning more about HRS and to be able to acknowledge the great work that the high school has done. That was fun to see them get recognized up there as well, going across the stage. And it was awesome at Roundtable with Barb Marzano. Chris Dibble even said, okay, what could I have done different? What could we have done better? What could we have done to improve? And he said, nope, you did everything terrific. So that was great, and that was great feedback. So kudos to the high school. That was wonderful. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Darcy. So I just want to say good evening, everybody.
Coming to know. I'm not going to demand of them.
Not mine. Okay, thank you. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about our essential topic that directly impacts student success and how we approach teaching standards at our school. As we know, the sheer number of standards that we expect to be taught is overwhelming. Research has shown that if you were to teach each standard, like Tyler talked about, it would take 22 years for students to master them all. So we don't have that kind of time in our space. And thanks to our wonderful takeaways from HRS, we talked about bundling standards. It's not just a strategy, but it's definitely a necessity. By bundling standards, we integrate concepts across subjects and grade levels, allowing students to make deeper connections in their learning. So instead of teaching in isolated silos, we create a meaningful, cohesive learning experience that reinforce key skills and knowledge. This is critical to ensuring that our students are prepared for future academic success, problem solving, and real-world application. So the second big takeaway for me was the MTSS and HRS and how they align together. So our district's commitment to multi-tiered systems of support and high reliability schools is at the heart of this work. A strong foundation in Tier 1 instruction is our key goal, as for 80% of our students to succeed in the core curriculum without any additional interventions. So to achieve this, we have to ensure that we have that strong Tier 1 instruction. It's rigorous, yet accessible. It's differentiated to meet the needs of all of our learners, and it's grounded in high-quality, research-based instructional practices. So bundling the standards definitely supports this mission by streamlining instruction, reducing redundancy, and ensuring that time is spent on depth, not just coverage. The third big takeaway for me was the vertical alignment, so the key to student success. Equally important is the vertical alignment, ensuring that instruction builds logically from one grade to the next. When teachers collaborate across grade levels, they can identify gaps and redundancies in student learning. They can ensure a seamless transition from one grade level to the other, and they can help students retain and apply what they have learned. When standards are vertically aligned and bundled effectively, students develop a clear, deeper understanding of content rather than memorizing disconnected facts. This supports critical thinking and long-term knowledge retention. So at the heart of all of our efforts in our schools is we want our students to be engaged, confident learners who see connections between subjects and understand how their education builds over time. By focusing on bundled standards, Tier 1 instruction, and vertical alignment, we set them up for success, not just in school, but in life. So I appreciate your time, I appreciate your support as we continue to focus on high-quality, efficient, impactful instruction for every student in our district. Thank you.
Any specific questions for Kim?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Chris?
Good evening. This was my third summit. I did the first one in Denver with Mary Jo, actually, where we actually booked Phil Warwick for the first time. Phil Warwick is the heir apparent to the Marzano Empire, a phenomenal speaker. We had him a couple years, 3 years ago, I think, to kick off our level 2 certifications. An amazing speaker and a brilliant a person and able to put this data together for us. During the roundtable, I had a chance to, no one really asked questions at first, so I looked at Bob Marzano and I said, Bob, I just want to thank you for doing the work that we don't have time to do. Scientifically proven and data-driven decision-making is what's important in driving our students forward. Being level 2 certified means that we've done the work and we will continue doing the work to make sure that all of our teachers are equipped to do the right thing. HRS is a district-wide framework for success. Every one of our buildings is taking part in this. It's participating at a high level. Everyone should be certified by the end of the year. When's the last time you saw 5 or 6 buildings come together and agree at more than an 80% rate on anything? We can't get the country to vote for more than 49% of one person, right?
Quick question. So their proficiency levels are one of the major factors that move them from level to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5.
All right, Sean's up.
All right, so Kim told me I'm anchor, which makes me slightly nervous. I've never been an anchor of anything, probably because I was mockingly called Wheels growing up, so that probably tells you how fast I was. But I didn't run either, Dave. Someone ran for me. That was one of the great things about it. So there was HRS, 12 hours of breakout sessions, plenty of, I'm going to call it education nerdery that we love. But the whole time, I think the discussion the four of us kept coming back to is, why do we need it here? Why do we need it in Albert Lea, and why does it need to be a foundational part of our district? And that's what I'm hoping my message can be across as I talk, is why is it so essential to the work we do? And really, it came down to some ABCs for me. I mean, I think the first one to me was accountability. We all know the metrics in education, they're often inadequate. I mean, we rely on MCA scores, graduation, but we can't rely on something like that to make the kind of changes our kids deserve. We can't wait for data in the spring or the summer to tell us if the school is running right. We need constant data, and that's one of the things HRS provides, is they give us those priorities, those indicators, and I think they're the priorities that you as a board and our community have said is important to them. There's things in there like, do we take parent feedback? Do we give opportunities for parents in our community to say, this is what we want in our schools? There's things like, do we use our financial resources adequately? Do we have enough? Do we use them responsibly? And I think the thing that I love most about it is there's a standard and it's data-driven. So when someone asks that question, okay, are parents giving a chance to give feedback about how the school's going? It's not just I talked to a parent yesterday. We have to have data to show these are the opportunities, this is what they said. So I think that's one of the parts that we love about HRS as building leaders, is we're constantly getting information we need to do what's best for our staff and students. And so I think that's a huge part of it. The next part for me is buy-in. For all of you who have worked with people, you know the buy-in on anything is incredibly hard. We're 7 years in. And I think one of the things that right away is hard to do with any teacher is teaching kids, it's a passion. It's very passionate subject to a lot of them. And to go into a teacher's room and talk about how they do it and talk about ways to improve is not an easy conversation to a lot of them. This has been their life's work. They live and breathe this every day. But I can tell you the buy-in is real in our building. Teachers are having conversations about instructional strategies that weren't there 7 years ago. They want to talk about physical movement. They want to talk about these different things that engage kids. They volunteer to host rounds. So we do this twice a year where a teacher basically says, who wants to come in and watch me teach? And a group of teachers will go around like you see on Grey's Anatomy, moving around room to room, watching a teacher teach, what's great, what are you doing well, what do I want to steal? And then they all get together afterwards and talk through it. That is only possible when a staff finds value in it. And not only do they find value in enough to let us do it, they volunteer now to let people come in. The curriculum work Chris talked about, he's right, 5 years ago we started it. And Mary Jo can attest as someone who worked with curriculum, Neil can attest, it's not something that people like to put down on paper and work their way through. Our staff is pounding it away. Scales are a tough thing to master, and they just spent 16 hours, and it was 16 great hours. So to look back at 7 years of buy-in and say, well, we can move on past that, we'll try something else, that's been the downfall of education across the world, is we often ask, buy-in on this, we're gonna try it for 2 years until we're ready to go to the next thing. And so to give up on that would be tough. The C for me was compatibility. I think one of the things you'll find if you ask around, there is no Marzano way, and they make that a very big, let's be real, they're a sales company, they make money, but they try to tell you, you can't do it our way. You need to do it the Albert Lea way. You need to know your community, you need to know your building. Dave, you asked the question about building-wise. You know, districts can adopt HRS, but each building will have to find their path. They have to respond to their data as it is in that month. So there is no one path. And so that ability to adjust to what our students and staff need at that moment, I think, is a huge reason why HRS is so important to us. But I think probably arguably the most important part is the sustainability side. We are an industry of turnover. So I'm getting ready to start my second decade here in Albert Lea. We'll be having my third superintendent. We're fortunate we've only had 2 principals at the high school, but we've gone through 10 administrators. How many different board members have we had? It's tough in an industry to constantly have a start over and start over and start over. The strength of HRS is no matter what, the framework is there. And we point blank asked Bob Marzano, what's the strength of that? And he said, well, yeah, you know, when you average every 2.7 years, a new principal is gonna come and take over, being able to just pick up right where the work left off is huge. It means that our staff doesn't start over, which means our kids don't start over. And that's what we're here for. So I think that's probably one of the biggest parts that I took away is the framework keeps us moving forward. We don't become stagnant, we don't move back. And that's really where we need you. And this is the part where the board support is huge. We asked point blank to Marzano, doesn't matter if a district says we're an HR district versus a school. Now, you need to remember Marzano is a big data guy, so of course he wanted to hedge at the first and say, I don't have a big enough sample size. But then when you pushed him further, it was yes. And we saw that. There were board members at the summit on districts that had announced we are an HRS district by board resolution. We are going to adopt that. So I think one of the things the 4 of us took away that's huge is we hope it's at the forefront of our superintendent search. This is too great of work to be pushed back by someone who has a difference of opinion. And even if possible, down the road, the idea of a resolution from the board saying, we are an HRS school. We'll do things our way, we'll adjust as we go, but it always falls inside the framework of HRS. And I think ultimately the reason why we want to push that is, you know, Tyler had brought up high reliability schools. What's a high reliability organization? And I think the message to me was high reliability organizations make mistakes, but they don't have failures because they make sure the mistake doesn't become systemic. And I think our children and our staff and our community deserve that from our schools. And I think the way to guarantee that is HRS.
Thanks, Sean. Any questions for Sean?
Well, obviously, I totally agree. Starting this 7 years ago. But, you know, back then, we told staff in buildings, we said one of the benefits of HRS is that, you know, let's take Kim Larson, principal at Halverson. If she moves to another building, et cetera, leaves Halverson, the next principal cannot come in and just do their complete own thing and then put the staff in a tailspin. It is continuing the systems and structures of a high reliability school. And obviously, I highly agree with a superintendent as well, because I know the hours and hours and hours and years that teachers have been putting in with the Marzano work of, you know, as a teacher, we talked about, well, what is scientifically based instruction? And we all kind of guessed at it. Well, here's Marzano's work. I don't know, I've seen that. What do you think? And those would be our conversations. This put in, we have the evidence. We look at effect size. We look at the data. We decide, well, this wasn't scientific based. And so I think we're getting better as instructors that no matter if you're a first-year teacher or a 30-year teacher, we're always growing. And so when Tyler showed the 43 instructional strategies, a new teacher maybe is starting on, I don't want to say easier ones, because teaching is not easy, but some of the ones that you would think a new teacher would start on, where a master teacher might be, they're diving into stuff they haven't done before and really taking that classroom to a new level. So I do agree for, you know, as a superintendent, bringing them on as part of the HRS process.
Well, I will say, you said 7 years ago. I was going to say 5 or 6 years ago. From a personal standpoint, it seemed like the shiny new nickel. Sorry, Mary Jo, you were involved. I mean, but I was really, you know, I've been really happy to see that. And I've had an opportunity, probably been 3 years ago now, to sit in on some of the different schools when they go through the SMART goals and all that. And I like, as you said, the sustainability or the consistency that we can see. And it's just like any good athletic, academic, music program or anything, it's all about that coach that's always there. And it doesn't always have to be the coach, it's the program that's in place. Because if I leave tomorrow and I was doing a good job and Joe comes in and takes over, that's what it's all about, because he said the kids don't have to change, just the way we're looking at it. Maybe we're not at the master level at the time, but we can sure get there because our kids know that. So I know, like I said, I had said that to Mike here a number of years ago too when we started as this, and I did call it the shiny new nickel. And I said, I just don't like to see something new all the time. And it has been nice to see, and I'm glad that we've been continually reporting on it too, so, thank you.
Yeah, because I would say when you said shiny new nickel, it did remind me 7 years ago of, we did have a lot of different initiatives going. If you're at Halverson, you had this going. If you're at Hawthorne, you had this going. Well, teachers change based on, section sizes, et cetera. We might have a teacher who taught first grade here this year, now they're in another building. And we just throw a new system at them, they're like, whoa, we can't keep up with this. It was just spinning. And so Dr. Funk was very clear. I mean, there was complete buy-in from district office to buildings that initiatives have to stop. This is a system and structure we're using. It has to align with HRS. I see Kathy Niebuhr here. She started QComp, I don't know how many years ago, Kathy, but HRS aligns beautifully with QComp is meant for teacher improvement. This gives us that structure on, well, what does teacher improvement look like? And so it has aligned very well. It's been a lot of work, but.
Any other thoughts, questions? You don't have to run back, you can take your time, Sean. Thank you to all of you.
Thanks, guys.
Kim and Chris and Tyler and Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us to 10.1, and that is the interim superintendent contract. And I've had an opportunity to take a look at it online, but I will look for a motion to approve, and then and a second, then we'll have a discussion if there's some needed.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, move to approve. Is there a second? Second. And Neil seconds. Okay. Open to discussion if anyone has any questions. Ashley is unable to be here tonight, so I will do my best.
Dave, the 60-day model that we came up with, that pretty well is established now, January through May for the most part, or? June? Okay.
And just to be totally transparent, if we need more than 60 days, I can approve that. I know, I just have got to make one comment that I've gotten from a couple different people, and it's not a knock, a hit, or anything to anyone, but within the first 6 days that Dave was here, he was in every building. He had an opportunity to see many classrooms, and I had a couple teachers come up and say, he literally said, what can we do for you? I'm just saying that he is doing a great job for the district to kind of bring us together and to get us to the next level. And I know when we talked to him, that was his big thing was, I want to be here. He basically said, I'm not going to be a babysitter. I want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to get the next full-time person in. So.
But just piggyback on that, Dave, that's the feedback I probably have heard the most from teachers and staff, is that there's a presence there and a steadiness that comes with folks that know Dave and his professionalism. So I think he has served our purposes to get us on kind of solid ground as we do the search. So it was good to hear that feedback.
I just wanted to mention I appreciate hearing about things that are happening in the district before we're approached on the street necessarily. I read it in the newspaper about things that we need to be apprised of what's going on. And he does a really good job with that, and I think this contract aligns with the discussions we had going into it, so I think it's solid for that. Yep.
Made it clear that communication was very important, and I think Dave has done that, has demonstrated some superior communication to board members. So again, it's very much appreciated.
No questions, but just for public information, I wanted to mention that the contract lists 60 total days, and it ends the end of June. I believe the days are flexible. That's my understanding. And then the salary is listed as $44,100.
Any other thoughts, comments? I would imagine the contract will end up being online once it's approved, like every other contract that we have within the district. All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No, the same sign. Okay, contract passed 6-0. Davey's not here tonight. Thank you. Just a reminder that Thursday, February 27th, we'll have a special meeting here at 5 o'clock, and that will continue to move us along in our superintendent search. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, and stay warm.